Welcome back to the Get Loved Up podcast, your number one resource for inspiration and motivation to live your purpose, make healthy living a priority, and thrive doing what you love. I'm your host, Koya Webb, a small town girl who chased her dreams and caught them, a former track and field athlete who healed using spirituality and yoga, and an entrepreneur who didn't let sexual assault, racism, and insecurities dim her light. And now it's your turn to allow these episodes with some of the top voices in spirituality, wellness, and entrepreneurship to inspire you to thrive. Let's get loved up together. Yasmine Cheyenne is a self-healing educator, author, speaker, and mental wellness advocate committing to helping people build healthy, joyful lives. Yasmine believes self-healing for everyone, and on 2/22/22 launched the Sugar Jar Community app, a safe space to develop self-awareness, learn boundaries, and find resources to support your mental health. Her expertise has been featured on top media outlets such as The Today Show, Forbes, InStyle Magazine, Refinery 29, and she has had partnerships with EmergenC and Two Chairs Therapy, among other wellness and mental health companies. Yasmine was also recently featured as TEDxRutgersCamden on the topic of how boundaries make space for the sweet things in life. Yasmine, thank you so much for coming on the Get Loved Up podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I am so excited because I feel like self-care, we cannot talk enough about self-care. And that is what you are all about. But first of all, I want to give people a background on kind of who you are, where you were raised, just a background on just like how you got to the point you are at today.
Yes. So I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. And, after high school, I joined the military immediately and actually ended up working with victims of domestic violence and victims of crime. And really that kind of catapulted me to where I am today, the holding space for people who have been through tough things, recognizing what trauma is, recognizing that we need help when we get on the other side of tough things. And before we get to those things as well, like really seeing that there was a real need for support. And so through my own healing work and my own journey of discovering who I am, I, felt the call to start holding space for others. And this is a really fast-tracked version of like a 15-year process. But it kind of got me to where I am today, being able to hold space for people and feeling so privileged to be able to create space for people to show up and get what they need, to learn how to take care of themselves in a way they may not have known before.
Yes, I think that is so important. And like you said, dealing with people who have had trauma, but then we all like have had so many times where we're like, our culture, this hustle culture, it does not make time for proper self-care and self-love. So when was it, was there like a time where, did you just know and just being in that military background start taking care of yourself? Or was there a time where you hit the wall and say, you know what, things have to change?
I definitely hit the wall while in the military. I think also too, like being a New Yorker, there is no slowing down. And so I think that plus being in the military with all of the, again, no slowing down mentality, plus my specific job of working with people who had been through trauma, I think the combination was like, I just knew, I was like, I need to have somebody hold space for me because I'm holding a lot. And so it was through that experience of feeling myself, having my first panic attack and I didn't even know it was called a panic attack. I had never heard of anyone ever having anxiety before. No one in my house would have used those words. And so experiencing those things myself and recognizing, wow, if we could give people the tools, it doesn't mean that you won't ever experience it, but at least you'll have what you need to be able to journey through it. For me, it was like, I was approaching those tools from a from a lens of infancy. It was the first time I had ever experienced or heard of any of these kinds of things before. So,
right. Thank you so much for
mhm.
sharing that. Because I felt the same way when I heard about anxiety. It was like anxiety this and I was like, why
Right.
do I all of a sudden have anxiety?
Yeah.
And then I realized, oh, when I have those heart palpitations, that's exactly.
Yes, that is exactly.
Just like, oh, I've been having anxiety since I
Right. That is legitimately what happened to me. I mean, I thought I had no idea. And it's just about right being in tune with your body, like all of these things happening within you and not having any idea what it means. Just thinking it's a normal thing. And again, anxiety is normal. However, it's trying to get our attention. It's letting us know that we need something, that we need to slow down, that we need to, take space, that we need to rest, whatever it is, So yeah.
It's just so funny how you can be experiencing something in your body and how we normalize just ignoring what our body is saying.
Mm-hmm.
So many of us, our body's talking to us and we'll take a pill or we'll ignore it. What are some of the things that you suggest in helping people identify if they're experiencing, some of the things that you would recommend them go deeper into self-care for?
Yeah, I think the number one thing that most people would say, I'm overwhelmed or I'm tired, or I think also people would feel comfortable saying I'm burnt out. Right. But a lot of the clients that I work with would actually say, I'm trying to figure out how I can get to the place where I can push harder. If you, and I think, so like coming from that perspective, because if I say, tuning into your body, a lot of people might be like, I have no idea what that means. Right. If you're in a place where there are things you want to accomplish or things you want to do, or maybe people you want to spend time with, and you don't feel like you have enough time to do those things because you're always overwhelmed with everything that's on your plate, the question I would ask you to ask yourself is, why do you have everything that you have on your plate? And are there things that you've said yes to that you don't need to be actually in charge of or responsible for? Now, I know if you have kids, you might be saying, well, I have kids, so I have to be responsible for my kids. I'm a mom too. So I understand that. And I also understand that outside of being a mom, there was a time where in addition to those responsibilities, I would also be saying yes to a bunch of other stuff that I really didn't have space or energy for. And so in short, what I'm talking about is we're checking in to see, where do we need boundaries? And when we have those boundaries in place, even though boundaries are incredibly hard to get started with, when we start to just get interested, get curious about where we need them, then we'll begin to be able to give ourselves that self-care. Before we can give ourselves the self-care, we have to have the time and space for it. Right. And I think that's usually what gets in the way of people actually getting started, because they're like, when am I supposed to find the time to do this when I'm already holding so much,
I think that's so important. I think you hit on something that I hear a lot too. And that is people prioritizing self-care, because it's like, you can't get it in if you don't see the importance of it and see why you need to prioritize it. So what do you do to help people realize like how to make self-care a priority?
Yeah, I think really prioritizing yourself starts with asking yourself those tough questions. Do I want to go to that wedding? Do I want to be a part of the PTA on my kids? Do I have any ideas about what would make me a good friend or a good person or a good parent or a good partner that are actually keeping me from having the energy and time and space to dedicate to those people and places like I actually want to? And so if we don't prioritize ourselves, and I think it's so important to be honest with ourselves, if we don't prioritize ourselves, we're usually showing up with people we love, tired, resentful, and overwhelmed. And I would love for us to invite ourselves to be honest about the ways that we say yes resentfully versus what it would feel like to say yes from a genuine space. And what does it feel like within when we do that, when we feel full and we say yes, versus when we're already drained and we say yes because we believe we have to. And I think that's how we begin to prioritize our time and our space and our energy, by recognizing that we don't have control over everything, but there are a lot of things that we do have control over. And how we spend our time, a lot of the times, outside of work, outside of kids, we do have those pockets of time that could be dedicated to ourselves. And I think it's important that we ask ourselves what we're doing with those moments.
That's so true. And it made me think of something that I used to do, which is people pleasing. And, always saying yes out of the desire to feel loved and feeling like, okay, well, if I say yes to them, it's showing them that I love them. And if I say no to them, they're going to feel like I don't love them and I don't like them. And I didn't know I was unconsciously thinking this, but when I broke it down, this is what was happening. And so what is your advice to those people who are just like yes people? They say yes to everything, but then they feel burnt out but they feel such an attachment to, this is how I receive love, this is how I show love, and how detrimental is that to functioning in a daily healthy way?
Yeah, I think that's so important what you just said. There's two things. The first thing is, am I saying yes, or am I people pleasing because I hope that eventually the people that I'm showing up for will want to show up for me? That's a lot of us, right? I know that was for sure me at a time, doing all the things and hoping that at some point people would realize I want these things too. The thing about it is, people don't do what we don't ask for. Like, so people will just keep receiving and they will not show up, especially if you're a person who, may identify as a strong friend or a strong family member or a strong person in everyone's lives. You're always the person people can rely on and call on to do things. It can get really hard when you are literally holding everyone else and feeling like no one's holding you. And the thing that is the invitation is to ask yourself what it would feel like to allow people to figure out how to deal with their own issues, to maybe not have access to calling you after a certain time, to give yourself the attention and energy that you're pouring into everyone else. Because even though a part of being a friend and a part of being in relationship with people is showing up for them and being there for them, it's not something that we can sustain 100% of the time. The second part of the people pleasing thing is recognizing that it's a learned behavior. And I think that that's such good news because it means we could learn something new. So a lot of us feel like, oh, I'm a people pleaser. That's just who I am. That's the person I am in my friend groups. That's the person I am in my family. It's like, no, you can choose something different that feels better. And that's not something you have to identify as now that you've recognized it's no longer serving you. And I think that can create a lot of freedom too, because we feel like this is just a part of who I am and there's nothing I can do about it. And knowing that you can change it is super powerful.
I love that. I definitely identify with that. That's who I am. And it's still who I am, but I've learned that, okay, you're empathic, you love to give, you love to love and serve. And that's beautiful. You're a servant leader. That's beautiful. What helped me was saying, okay, you have to love yourself and serve yourself just as much, if not more, than you serve others. Because that's just, it is how I identify. But like you said, I had to learn something different so I wouldn't be exhausted. I wouldn't be overwhelmed. I wouldn't be resentful because, like you said, people don't do what you don't ask for. And if you're so busy doing so much for so many other people don't even have space to do for you because you're busy, know? And so,
I got it, right? You're always, no, I got it. I'm good. Yeah,
I'm good. Oh, can you go out with me here? Well, I got to sleep now. I'm busy doing something for someone else. And so there's no space and time. And so I had to learn that I'm always going to feel overwhelmed and depleted and not have time unless I make it now, like having my mornings for spiritual time, work during the day, and then my evenings for friends and family, and even my weekends just free for someone to reach out to me. And it feels so good to organic and say, I didn't have anything planned for today, and have an organic day with a friend that I haven't seen in like 2 months. And it's brought me so much freedom. But I literally had to tell myself that you have to pour into yourself. And now that I am pouring into myself more, I actually pour into others more. And it's funny. I don't know if you can speak to how that works, but I noticed that I'm more full. I have more health. I have more vitality. I actually think about things I never did before because I just have more free space and time.
Yes, I love that. And I mean, what you were talking about is really the essence of boundaries. Like, my mornings are for my routine. You know, my work is in the afternoon. And then I have the evenings for friends and families. And then the weekends for, those are boundaries you put in place to have those times available for what helps your life feel the most full. And I mean, from the way that I teach my method, the sugar jar, it's thinking about the way that, you know, your jar is us, it's your person. The sugar inside is your energy. The lid is your boundaries. And so essentially, if we're making sure that we're prioritizing like you did, your mornings are for you, then your mornings, you're filling yourself up. You're pouring sugar back into your jar so you have energy for your daytime. Your friends and family was boundaries. So, you know, you were expecting to be giving or serving or holding space while also enjoying yourself. So then we're pouring out some sugar, but maybe we're getting some back in. But when we prioritize ourselves in that way, we're bound to be fuller, because the opposite effect, when we're people pleasing or like recovering perfectionists like myself, recovering strong friend myself, you know, all we're doing is taking sugar out constantly. We got leaks in the jar, sugar all over the place. It's a mess. Our energy is dispersed in all kinds of directions, and we have no clear discernment about who we're giving to or where we're going at any particular time. And so people think that boundaries actually are selfish, but no, they keep us from being selfless. They keep us from completely expelling ourselves all over the place. When you come from when you love from a boundary place, you're more likely to be able to give from that full place.
I love that. And I can attest to that exactly how I feel. I had a friend tell me the other day, like, you feel so grounded. And I love being around you because you're doing a lot and you're accomplishing a lot, but you're very grounded. And I felt like that was the biggest compliment, because I remember when I wasn't so grounded and I did feel like, you know, scattered, and then people would compliment like, you're all over the place, you know, you're here and there. And it feels so much that to get more comments like, oh, your energy feels grounded. You feel grounded. I feel grounded around you. And I feel like that's the biggest compliment, because I know it hasn't always been like that. And it wasn't like that when I didn't have those healthy boundaries. So what are some of your healthy boundaries that you have in your life that you feel like have worked the best for you?
A big one for me is my evening routine. Like, I have do not disturb on my phone. Apple made it cool now for us to have it on, because like everyone has their notifications off. So it's not as shady as it used to feel to some people that have do not disturb on. But just the simple act of my phone not being available and beginning that wind down routine, making my sleep tea, my nighttime tea, putting my magnesium in, sitting down, you know, putting on a meditative podcast or something that's going to bring me some joy, like really settling myself down and then genuinely getting ready for deep rest. Because I think that what was missing from my life for a long time was solid, consistent sleep. And I had subscribed to the idea that, oh, I could do 5 hours, 6 hours. Oh, I feel okay. And now that I recognize how much better I think and live on that deep rest, I mean, I'm convinced that is something that I mean, I know we all need rest, and yet it's the first thing to go usually. Oh, I could get up early. Oh, I could stay late. Oh, I could, you know, I'll get sleep tomorrow. So yeah, that's been something that's been really life-giving to me as of late, and I've had to set boundaries in order to make sure that I do it, because it could easily, yeah.
I love that, especially the nighttime routine, that tea at night and that magnesium. It just feels so good. I do a self massage and it's just like, just winds you on down in bed. And I also love like, really, like you said, setting those boundaries, it makes you feel even better, especially when it comes to sleep. Because I'm with you. I was like 4 hours a night for many years. Like, I'm just saying, oh, I'm a happy-go-lucky person. I only need 4 hours. But what helped me, and I'm going to share this, what really helped me start getting more sleep and still helps me, I have to remind myself, because sometimes I'm like, oh, 6 hours is fine, but I really try to get 8. But when I start getting 6, I remind myself, your body is going to recover more and you're going to have more energy and be stronger, healthier. Your immune system is going to be better if you sleep for those 8 hours. So the more sleep you get, the more your body can regenerate, renew, and recover. So that does it for me. I don't know if it does it for anybody listening, but that'll help me, because if you think about it the other way, like, how much can I accomplish? That's what I was thinking before. It's just like, I can get more done if I sleep less. But now if I know I can feel better if I sleep more, and then I'll be more able to get things done when I get into my day. It really does help me just lay back down for a couple more hours, get the extra sleep in. So
I love that. And it's true. I think I really thought I was getting more done. I was not getting more done. I mean, I was, but not in the way that I do when I'm rested. I'm sure you resonate too. So yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Like, you get stuff done, but it's not as focused. It's not as clear. It's not as, but and not only sleep, when you get sleep, you get the recovery, you get the boost in immune system, you get all that scientific juice that comes with being well rested. But then as well, when you put in the boundaries, like you said, the routine, you're more on purpose. You're more spiritually aligned. You have more mental clarity. So when you do the work, the quality of the work you do, because I went from working 12-hour days to 8-hour days to now 6-hour days, hopefully get to 4-hour days. But it's because the quality of the work is so better, because I'm happy. I spend time with my friends. I talk to my family. I'm healthy. I'm in divine alignment with God and with spirit, and I'm tapping in. And so, with a business as entrepreneurs, there's so many ups and downs. When you have those bookends of like friends and family and spirit,
it's everything.
It's everything. It makes everything better.
I think that's why it's so important to always be curious and question like how you define yourself. Like when you were saying earlier, like, oh, I'm happy-go-lucky, I only need that much sleep. Or, I used to say, oh, I'm a hard worker, I'm gonna stay up, I'm gonna get it done, I'm gonna hustle and get it done. Or I'm empathic, I can give, like, what people pleasing, whatever it is you identify yourself as, it's so important to question it, because sometimes we're limiting ourselves by these ideas of what we think we have to be. And it may not actually be fulfilling what we want to be in alignment with. Like, if I want to feel well rested and at ease and have more peace in my life, is everything that I'm saying I am actually in alignment with that? So which one is actually true? And when we begin to question and be curious, then we can begin to unravel, like, oh, I'm not actually interested in hustling till midnight. That's something I thought I had to do to be successful, or whatever your story was. So yeah, I think that's also important too.
Ashe, I totally agree, because our words are everything. Our words are energetic too. And if we speak against ourselves, then, we have to watch. And I do it still sometimes to this day. And I'll have to like course correct myself and say, oh, no, actually, you're going to get some sleep. And so now I want to kind of get into trauma, because you work a lot and you're very, I don't know if I try to refrain from saying trauma informed, but a lot of people that you work with have trauma. So what things have you learned in working with people who have experienced trauma? I know you have the big T and the small T trauma, but can you speak to trauma and self-care and how you're helping people really gain control of their lives?
Yeah, I think trauma, today, actually, from what we've experienced over the past 2 years, no one now has not gone through trauma, because the past 2 years have been quite traumatic. But there's different kinds of trauma, and the way that we experience it and how it affects who we are. Sometimes we go through things where we have post-traumatic growth. And then sometimes we go through things where, we have post-traumatic disorder, where we're constantly reliving the painful experience that we had. And so recognizing that, one, I will say, having a trauma therapist is powerful. I am not a therapist. I am a healer. I'm a coach. I am a guide. And so I always let people know that you can do both. You can have the person that's going to hold space for you, the therapist that's going to hold space for you, who's going to diagnose you through Western medicine, all those things. And then also have the person who's going to support you with the herbs and the things and help get your nervous system in alignment as well. But I say all that to say that the people that I usually work with are people who, again, think that who have no idea they've experienced trauma. Something has happened to them and they're thinking, I want to get back to my normal self. What do I do to keep pushing forward? And so I think the most important thing is giving people this space to hold the fact that they may not be the same person that they were before this thing happened. I mean, just looking at the past 2 years is a great way of explaining it. Who we were in December 2019, we might never be those people again. Mm-hmm. And looking at the ways in which we've changed, what we've shifted, what we've learned, and how we've grown since then, and holding space for the things that were incredibly hard that we're going through, and making space for that grief as well. And sometimes just being someone that people can process grief with and begin to accept with is a really powerful thing, which I feel like is primarily what I do. Once they get to the place of being able to accept and being able to grieve the tough parts of it, then we can get to the other side. And it's a process.
Yes, it is such a process. I don't know your favorite book on trauma, but I mean, What Happened to You by Oprah Winfrey, it's really
powerful.
I remember buying 6 copies, and I wasn't even halfway through it yet. And it's so powerful. And can you speak to really understanding how, and I don't know if you could identify with yourself, but how do you start? Because this is a question I get a lot. How much self-care do I need? And I've shared how I do it for myself, but can you share what you do personally and what you recommend to people? I don't know if you get that question, but people treat self-care like it's a burden. But
it is. And people are like, okay, when am I done? Check. I really think that if we're talking about you've experienced some kind of traumatic experience, let's go with something that a lot of people can relate to, a breakup. Mm-hmm. A breakup can be really traumatic because you enmeshed, not enmeshed in an unhealthy way, but you were connected, better word. You were connected. You were in a relationship. You were potentially hoping to move forward together. And when that thing ends, especially if it's abruptly or you weren't planning on it, there's a disconnect, there's a loss. It can be traumatic because it's an ending. Just in itself, it can bring up feelings of grief, depression, anxiety, all of those things. And so first, allowing the stories that might come up, just move on. There's more people out there. All of the ways that we try to silence ourselves, all of the ways that we try to quiet ourselves from experiencing the true disappointment, the grief, the anger, the rage, everything that's coming up, questioning those stories. And I think if you're having something like that going on in your life, the answer to how much self-care do I need is a lot. Because if you're experiencing all of those emotions, we want to I love the idea of duality. As much as I'm experiencing the tough stuff, I want to make space for the good stuff as much as I can and hold both. Mm-hmm. So if I'm having a tough breakup and it's a lot of hard stuff going on there, I want to be spending time with people that reminds my body and nervous system that yes, this thing didn't remain, but I have evidence in my life of people who do hold space for me, for people who I am connected to, that there is love in my life. We have to begin to create a circle around ourselves that completely pokes holes in any negativity or any stories that we may hold on to and hold as truth, and have that evidence of the opposite side, the reality in our lives. And so that is what we're doing when we're really infusing our lives with self-care and with joy. We're saying, I'm going to have ups and downs, but in the midst of all that, I'm also going to make space for the peace. And that's what we're doing healing for in the first place. If we're not doing healing for joy, then I don't know what we're doing it for, you know?
Woo, so many bars in that. I mean, well, I got chills because I resonate so much. And I have to take this back to childhood because I think a lot of people relate. And I love my family, my mom, my dad, my brothers, my sisters. I love my family. We get along very well now. But when I was growing up, it was challenging.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel what you said about when you are around in environments that, and as an empath, which I do identify as, when you're in environments and you're super sensitive and everything is tearing you down, you go to school, you go to work, and you feel less than, you feel unvalued, you feel unloved, and you feel it at home too, you gotta get loved up. I think when I really think about it, this is what I feel like built up to me naming my company Get Loved Up, because I literally had to get loved up to heal from feeling unseen, unheard, unvalued, and unloved.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to learn to love myself. I couldn't seek it in anyone outside of myself, because I think that's what we do. We seek it from, drugs. We seek it from Instagram or social media, or we seek love from outward validation. Partners. Exactly. And it just, something about how you said it made me realize like how not only is it important to receive it and give it to yourself, but also it's so important to surround yourself with people that love you, adore you, pour into you. It's like when you were saying it, I got a visual, and I've been feeling that since, I guess, want to say the last 4 years of my life, I've been seeing how important that is with feeling it. And it took me creating those boundaries first and making time outside of my business so that I could surround myself with people who really care about me. Because a lot of times it's work, it's exchange, it's, it's not necessary love and nurture. And I don't know if you can speak to that a little bit more, but I definitely had a full body reaction to how important I think that is, that you make sure you have enough people and places and things beyond just the self-care and the rituals and routine that are pouring into you in a very healthy way.
Yes. I think, I teach self-healing not because you should be doing it alone, but because we're on this journey by ourselves, because nobody's going to force us to commit to ourselves or commit to our work. Right? Mm-hmm. The reason that we want to have space or be full or have space for the people, places, and things that we love is so that when we connect to people, we experience the joy of vulnerability. We experience the joy of connection. We experience the joy of being in relationship with people. If I struggle with my worthiness, then I'm also going to struggle with believing that the people I'm in relationship truly want to be here. Even if they do genuinely want to be here, I'm going to struggle with receiving their love. I'm going to struggle with receiving their assistance. I'm not going to ask them for help. I'm going to begin to believe that I'm actually doing this by myself, this meaning life by myself. And so it's so much bigger than, this is what I mean. This is what people mean, I hope, when they say it's not just about the bubble baths, meaning self-care, or it's not just about the mask. Those things are important because when we adorn ourselves, when we love on ourselves, we do genuinely begin to have this connection between us and our body, our physical self, and treating it with care. And I think that that is a very important part of self-care. And I don't like to take that part away. And also getting our the care and getting the connection from the people that we're in relationship with is the second part, and a very important part of and learning to allow people in our lives, learning that just because other people treated us wrong or harmed us, or we had, family issues, myself included, where we may not have even felt like we belonged in our families. Now we can create new cycles and new relationships that don't fit the narrative that we grew up in, or that we learned in a relationship, or that we learned even at a job. So many people have had, loving families and maybe loving relationships, and then went to a job and felt like their worth was sucked out of them. And having to learn how to be brave enough to put yourself back out there again, that's why we build ourselves up. Because when life comes around and tries to tear us down, this is going to be the thing that holds us up. And it's really powerful to be able to have people around you. And also, in order to believe them, you have to be willing to believe it yourself.
Mm-hmm. So. Oh, that's so beautiful. Yes, you have to believe you're worthy, you're valuable, you are enough. Mm-hmm. I know when I, talk to people about, letting your fears make you fierce, the biggest thing is like changing limiting beliefs into liberating affirmation. Mm-hmm. And those limiting beliefs are it's like lack of self-care, mm-hmm. And your affirmations are affirming who you truly are. And my biggest one was, I am not enough. And I really had to identify when I felt like that, because I wouldn't say it all the time. But when I went down and identified, I had to see like, okay, when am I feeling like this? And really break it all the way down. So do you have a similar tool that you use to really help people identify when they're getting into that space of limitation or a space of depletion, because I feel like identifying it before you're burnt out or overwhelmed or stressed is one of the keys.
Yes, it's definitely the sugar jar check-ins. Checking in with yourself. Where is my jar right now? How much sugar is in it? Do I feel full or do I feel empty? Do I feel halfway? And not even having to get very specific, like just saying, I feel empty. Why? Why do you feel empty? Have you ever noticed when you're in maybe just on a phone conversation, or here's a better one, you have a relationship with someone that you're struggling with, and you've said yes to meeting them for lunch or something like that. And on the days leading up, before you've even connected with this person, that energetic yes has already started to drain your sugar jar. You're worrying about what they might say at lunch. You're worrying about whether you're wearing the right thing or what you're going to share with them that they won't be able to pick on. Those are those breadcrumbs, those signs that, okay, my jar is leaking already. This is a drain. I haven't even been in the same space as this person yet, and I'm already feeling low.
Right.
That's when we begin to have those self-inquiries like, should I be having this lunch? Should they be in my life? Do I need to have a conversation with them? And then also, is it me? Are they just being themselves and I'm maybe projecting something, asking all the questions, but those sugar jar check-ins really allow us to be able to ask ourselves, who am I with and what am I doing when I feel my fullest? And who am I with and what am I doing when I feel my lowest? And how can I begin to adjust those? We won't have perfect lives, but saying yes to people that we know aren't a fit or things that we know aren't a fit is a great way of just beginning to advocate for ourselves in real time.
I love that. And I love your sugar jar concept. I absolutely love it, love it, love it. And I feel like it's so important to have like a visual and to have that sugar jar. I'm Southern, so I used to drink sugar water. So that's
I've had that before.
Okay. But thank you so much. I feel like people are going to be able to start pouring more into themselves and start seeing, where they're depleted so that they can fill themselves up and live in purpose and be, purposeful, even though we're experiencing some of the darkest times, even though we have all had different levels of trauma, it is possible to recover. And as we close up, I want to kind of get into some of those tools that help you when it comes to recovery. Are there any favorite books that you suggest people to read, or podcasts you suggest people to check out in order for them to really fill up their sugar jar?
Yeah, so I really love, this is cliche, but I love Super Soul Sunday. I love to watch the episodes. I cry every time. Watch them and cry. So that's a cliche one, but I also love Balanced Black Girl podcast, the Hey Girl podcast, and your podcast will have a array of things that you're already listening here. My favorite books for people to fill themselves up, I really love I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. I know that's a classic by Dr. Maya Angelou, but it's just such a warm book about a Black woman who is trying to find her way in the world when it felt like everything was against her, and finding herself despite not having all the societal standards. My other favorite book is The Alchemist. I don't know if you've ever read that.
Yes.
It's just, I feel like it's like every time you read it, you get a different takeaway from it. And I love books like that. So yeah.
I love it. You're one of the few guests with everything you suggest that I love and have read.
Oh, yeah.
We got a lot in common. I love that. Thank you so much. I really appreciate, just your offerings. And I want you to share the offerings that you have out there for people to enjoy and where they can come get loved up with you a little more.
Yes. So first, you can find me on Apple and Google Play. I have an app called the Sugar Jar Community. It's filled with daily affirmations, a journal, video workshops, audio workshops, all the things. You can also find me on Instagram at Yasmine Cheyenne. And I have a podcast, the Sugar Jar Podcast. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, I cannot wait to check out all things. I was trying to download the app on my run and I didn't have enough Wi-Fi. So I cannot wait to get on the app and just really love what you're offering in the world. And I like to ask a series of questions or one question at the end. And my question for you is, if you could, create this world of your dreams, and this is you could wake up in the morning, we would all be living in Yasmine's world, what would it look like?
Oh my goodness. It would be where everybody felt confident staying in their lane. I know that sounds, I think if we knew how powerful the gifts we were given were, and we were willing to follow those gifts, and we were also empowered to do it and had all the systems and access and all of those things. But if we really didn't focus on what other people were doing and just really tried to do what we wanted, I think it would be really powerful for not only our self-esteem, but just our joy. So yeah.
Yes. Oh, I absolutely love that. I think that so many times we're searching. We're searching and trying to figure out what really brings me joy. I know many years I was searching for what really brings me joy, what really makes me feel good. And I feel like it's so many times at different times in our lives where it shifts and change. And especially with the pandemic, there's so many shifts and change. So do you have a recommendation for people to find out what their purpose is or what their lane is?
Yes. First, I would advise or invite you to not try to find it on social media. I think a lot of us are trying to do that. There's tons of inspiration there, but there's also a lot of noise. So get curious. What am I already genuinely interested in? Things that I like to discuss that I might feel embarrassed about bringing up. Are you into documentaries and no one's around you is interested in that, so you don't mention it? Do you really love photography? Or do you say things like, in another life, I would be an interior designer? What about this life? What would it feel like to just give yourself the space to explore it? It doesn't have to be your business. You don't have to become an entrepreneur yet. Just giving yourself the freedom to live in that creativity. Because I feel like when we find our creativity, we think, oh, I got to turn this into a moneymaker. Just starting with being creative and exploring it and allowing yourself to be in that space might be something that feels like it ignites a bit of that purpose within you. I know when I had my 9 to 5, having my hobbies and the things that brought me joy outside of work, and even now my business, even more so, I need stuff that's not connected to my work. And that's just fun and joy. So, yeah.
Love that. I love that. And I feel like some of all of it, and I feel like that's where it can get confusing for people. Like, okay, what is the hobby? What is making money? And we do like to talk about entrepreneurship. So how did you decide in your life, like, I am going to make this my career?
Honestly, it was when people were asking me, can I hire you? Mm-hmm. I know I went through a coaching program and I started sharing my work just a little bit online, but I had always been writing, and it was just something that I did for myself. I had, a few clients, and I started getting referrals. And then I realized I couldn't keep up with work and my business in terms of the way I was teaching and doing one-on-one clients and traveling and things like that. So it really it was something I always dreamed of, but it was something that found me through, and I don't want to make it seem like it found me and there was no work. I had to do a lot of work to be able to have it find me. Mm-hmm. But what I mean by saying that is I had to do the work of, can I actually pay my bills? Can I actually support my family? Can this actually be something that I can sustain? And yeah, I ended up saying absolutely goodbye to my 9 to 5 in 2020, during the pandemic. So I think it's really interesting to take a chance on yourself like that during that time. But I think it was because I had already decided that I found my community and I was going to really step into it full time. So, yeah.
That's absolutely beautiful. Well, it's been so great getting to know you and meeting you. I know everyone listening really enjoyed this call. And I just want to thank you for coming on and just sharing your wisdom, your brilliance, your self-love tips with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. This is one of my faves. So thank you.
Thank you. And those listening, if you had a takeaway or something that really resonated with you, find us on social media. Let us know what it was. Tag us. If you haven't left a review yet, please leave a review. Let us know how you like this podcast. If you have some constructive feedback, you can leave that as well. I just love just hearing from you and just knowing what's resonating. So until next time, love yourself, love others, and love the world one day at a time. One breath at a time. Peace and love.
I just want to take a moment to say thank you for being part of the Get Loved Up community. I like to share topics and people making a positive impact in the world, and your feedback means the world to me. If you haven't already left a review, please leave a 5-star review and let me know what you want to hear more of on the show. I'm here for you, and together we're making the world a better place, one day at a time, one show at a time. Thank you for listening.